Bigger tax burdens on the way for Hong Kongers living and working on the mainland. ICAC charges former top official in flat swap deal.
The committee has been alarmed by numerous reports of detention of large numbers of ethnic Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities held incommunicado and often for long periods without being charged or tried.
And China under fire from UN over treatment of Uyghurs in Xinjiang.
Hello, good evening. Hong Kongers working on the mainland face being taxed not only for what they earn in China, but also around the world. And the threat of double taxation is putting a dampener on a new Chinese residence permit, which is designed to attract talent from Hong Kong, Macau and Taiwan to the mainland. Here's Kena Chu with our top story.
The new mainland resident permit for Hong Kong residents may seem less attractive now. That's after the National People's Congress Standing Committee amended a tax bill this afternoon. Starting from 2019, those working and having resided in the mainland for at least 183 days a year will be taxed for income from both in and outside China. Currently, income made globally is only taxable for those who have lived in the country for at least 5 years.
Hong Kong residents or businessmen or employees will try to move away from residing in China in order to reduce their tax burden or tax liability on a worldwide basis. That may have an adverse effect of not being able to attract foreign experts or talents working in China.
Mainland tax rates are generally higher than Hong Kong's. Under its progressive tax system, those with a yearly salary of up to 36,000 yuan pay 3% tax. Earnings exceeding 960,000 yuan are subject to a 45% tax. Entrepreneurs earning less than 30,000 yuan annually will pay a 5% tax. That increases to 35% when profits surpass 500,000 yuan. Interest, dividends, rental income, and unexpected income are all taxable by 20%. Arrangements between the Hong Kong and mainland authorities are currently available to avoid double taxation. Quoting mainland officials, Tam Yu Chung, a member of the MPC Standing Committee, says a tax exemption could be discussed for Hong Kongers working on the mainland but who reside mainly in the SAR. Meanwhile, the design of the new mainland residential permit came out last night. The card, adorned with holographic patterns, carries the watermark of China's Great Wall on both sides. Starting tomorrow, residents of Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan who have lived on the mainland for at least 6 months can apply for the permit. Kena Chu, TVB News.
The city's anti-graft body charged 2 people today in relation to a suspicious flats swap deal worth more than $500,000. Sharon Tang has details.
First in the spotlight, Wilson Fong. Back in 2004, he was the Deputy Secretary for Economic Development and Labour. He was also the head of its aviation division, taking care of air service negotiations and more. Next, Chen Yun-yo. Back then, she was the director and shareholder of 3 airlines and helicopter companies. Fong allegedly accepted from Chen a sum of $510,000 without lawful or reasonable excuse. That amount was said to be a reward for being favorably disposed to her and her 3 firms. Additionally, Fong is suspected of having used the sum as an initial deposit to purchase a property on Robinson Road. According to the Independent Commission Against Corruption, or ICAC, he failed to declare to the government his acceptance of the money. In respect to handling the applications of Chan's companies, Fong also failed to declare a conflict of interest or to abstain from decision-making. This eventually resulted in the ICAC charging the former official with 1 count of public servant accepting an advantage and 1 of misconduct in public office. Meanwhile, Chen faces a charge of offering an advantage to a public servant. After seeking further legal advice, the ICAC says there is not enough evidence to prosecute other persons involved in the investigation. The two will appear at the Eastern Magistracy next Tuesday for transfer to the District Court for a plea. Meanwhile, Feng's position as the Airport Authority's executive director has been suspended. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
Former Chief Executive Donald Tsang has lost his plea for another appeal against his conviction of misconduct in public office. The defense counsel earlier challenged the court based on 3 points, including an apparent failure by counsel to correct an omission in the judge's summing up. But the 3-judge panel today refused to certify any of the points since they simply do not arise in this case. Tsang was found guilty last year of failing to disclose a penthouse deal with Bill Wong, who was a major shareholder in a media company applying for a digital radio license. Tsang's jail term was cut down to 12 months after his appeal in July.
Government officials spent the day trying to explain why the mainland port area at West Kowloon Station is being leased at such low rates. But what really caught the attention of legislators today was evidence of more shoddy construction at Hong Hom Station. Caleb Leung reports.
Lawmakers held 2 special meetings today to discuss issues related to the MTRC, despite Electrical still on its summer break. During a meeting of Electrical's panel on transport, lawmakers learned of more problems at Hong Hom Station. The government revealed details of shoddy concrete being used to build station platforms.
In Zone B, C1 and C2 at the bottom of the platform slab, after the concrete was opened up, there were honeycombs in the concrete.
The Buildings Department has ordered MTRC to inspect the station's platform slabs.
We have asked that the appropriate people, according to the results of the investigation, to submit an investigation report and a rectification plan to the buildings within 14 days.
Civil engineer Ngai Hock Yen said the problem was caused by poor craftsmanship, but is repairable by filling the honeycombs with concrete. Meanwhile, lawmakers were also told Beijing would only pay a mere $1,000 per year for the mainland port area at West Kowloon Station.
The operation has no commercial element. The Hong Kong SARG leases the land, and normally we only charge a nominal fee. We believe the arrangement is appropriate.
Beijing was also spared a land development fee, while Hong Kong has paid more than $1 billion for the Shenzhen Bay port. But the mainland government is reducing the rent for the SAR to use the port.
They agreed that the rent would be reduced from 8.1 million renminbi to 1,000 renminbi, which is almost equivalent to the rent the mainland pays for the MPA.
Earlier this morning, there was a special meeting for the subcommittee on matters relating to railways. Lawmakers expressed concerns over the 19mm sinkage at the light rail's Tin Wing stop and slammed the rail company for the delayed announcements. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Overseas, US President Donald Trump is threatening to pull out of the World Trade Organization if they don't shape up. It's his latest criticism of the World Trade Body. Trump complains that the US is treated unfairly in global trade and blames the WTO for allowing it to happen. An American withdrawal from the organization could undermine one of the foundations of the global trading system which the US helped create. In Brussels, the European Union Trade Committee strongly disagreed with Trump. The EU is also at odds with the Trump administration over US blocking of the appointment of judges at the WTO and tariffs set for reasons of national interests.
A blown tire on a semi-truck may be to blame for killing at least 7 people when it crashed head-on with a passenger bus in New Mexico. The semi-truck was sent careening across Interstate 40 and into oncoming traffic. That's where it slammed into a Greyhound bus carrying 49 passengers headed to Phoenix from Albuquerque. Witnesses say the impact was so powerful, Parts of both vehicles were shredded to pieces among the dead and sobbing passengers. Traffic was shut down for hours in the affected lane. The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board and New Mexico police are investigating.
A United Nations Human Rights Committee has voiced alarm over alleged Chinese prisons and re-education camps for Muslim Uyghurs on the pretext of countering terrorism. The Foreign Ministry rejected the allegations and said anti-China forces are behind the criticism. Alan Buckner reports.
The UN Committee on Elimination of Racial Discrimination cited estimates of up to 1 million Uyghurs that are being held in China's far western Xinjiang province.
The committee has been alarmed by numerous reports of detention of large numbers of ethnic Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities held incommunicado and often for long periods without being charged or tried under the pretext of countering terrorism and religious extremisms.
The Foreign Ministry rejected the allegations and said Xinjiang faces a serious threat from Muslim extremists and separatists who plot attacks and stir up tensions between the mostly Muslim minority and the ethnic Han majority. But the UN panel decried China's broad and unclear definition of separatism in Chinese legislation. It said this could be used against those peacefully exercising their rights and result in criminal profiling of ethnic and religious minorities.
We're asking China on the number of people, we're asking China on the detention condition, on the human conditions, on the basis for the detention, about the legality of the detention, about the access to lawyers, about the legal, human, and situation of the centers. How are they being treated? About the incommunicado situation, if it exists, about torture.
The Foreign Ministry also lashed out at critics in Washington, saying they had no right to criticize its policies on ethnic minorities. On Wednesday, a group of U.S. lawmakers called for sanctions on Chinese officials responsible for human rights abuses against Muslims in Xinjiang. It said the region is being turned into a high-tech police state. Alan Buckner, TVB News.
Still ahead in tonight's news. Court hears forensic evidence in Yoga Ball murder case. Arizona bids farewell to Senator John McCain.
實到實一實，有 Airwave 洗手，幫你隨時隨地一照重新啟動。
Welcome back to TVB News. The High Court heard carbon monoxide levels inside a medical professor's car were 35 times above safety limits. Ko Kim Sun's wife and daughter were found dead inside the vehicle in 2015, and Ko is now standing trial. Christy Leung with details.
Wong Kun-hong, the government's forensic scientist, continued to testify at the High Court today. He carried out a series of examinations on a deflated yoga ball that was seized by the police from a vehicle where Ko Kim Sun's wife and daughter were found dead from carbon monoxide poisoning. The medical professor faces 2 murder charges, which he has denied. Wong carried out 3 simulation tests between 2015 and 2016. During a test in May 2016, he inflated the ball with carbon monoxide, removed the plug, and put it in the trunk of the car. With the windows and doors closed, a reading of 7,000 parts per million or ppm of carbon monoxide was inside the car after 5 hours. That exceeded the safety level of 200 ppm by 35 times. In November 2015, Wong examined the ball and found no carbon monoxide in it. After inflating the ball with compressed air, he found it deflating slowly like a souffle instead of rapidly like a balloon. However, the defense argued that Wong's experiments were hopelessly unscientific. One of the reasons was that Wong had never measured the volume of the yoga ball, but only used visual measurement.
The court adjourned today's hearing after defense lawyers finished questioning the government's forensic scientist. The case will resume next Monday. Christy Leung, TVB News.
Customs officers have seized more than $17 million worth of goods in an anti-smuggling operation at border control points. Some of them include rhino horn, dried seahorse, and American ginseng. There were also hundreds of kilograms of meat and poultry without health certificates. Speaking on the 3-month operation, customs officers said they arrested close to 2,800 people. An Australian filmmaker has been convicted of spying in Cambodia and sentenced to 6 years in prison. 69-year-old James Ricketson was arrested in June of 2017 after he flew a drone to photograph a Cambodian opposition party rally. Prosecutors said he was working with the opposition party and with a foreign power, but the country was never specified. There was some hope for leniency after the government won a sweeping re-election and released almost 24 jailed critics. Ricketson is insisting he has no political agenda and was just making a documentary.
Famous French actor Gerard Depardieu is accused of raping a woman. The alleged victim is only identified as a 22-year-old comedian and dancer. She claims the 69-year-old Depardieu assaulted her on August 7th and then again on August 13th at his home in Paris. French prosecutors are investigating even though Depardieu denies all allegations of rape or sexual assault. His lawyer calls the accusations groundless and vows to fight the case. Depardieu has appeared in 200 films over 6 decades and holds a rare position as a French actor popular in Hollywood. Mourners in the U.S. state of Arizona got to bid farewell to the late U.S. Senator John McCain during a memorial service. Sonia Altero reports.
Thousands of Arizonans lined the streets to pay tribute to their representative, 6-term Republican Senator John McCain. A motorcade carrying his body made its way to a church in Phoenix the McCain family attended. As a military honor guard carried his flag-draped coffin, family and loved ones gestured by saluting or touching their hearts. Former Vice President Joe Biden gave the eulogy. Despite being a Democrat, Biden was a good friend of McCain, and his son died of the same brain cancer McCain battled.
I always thought of John as a brother. We had a hell of a lot of family fights.
Biden called the war hero and 2-time Republican presidential candidate a remarkable man who inspired the masses.
It's always about basic values, John. Fairness, honesty, dignity, respect, giving hate no safe harbor, leaving no one behind, and understanding that as Americans we're part of something much bigger than ourselves.
An NFL star also celebrated McCain as a man who had no boundaries when it came to friendship.
While some might find our friendship out of the ordinary, it was a perfect example of what made him an iconic figure of American politics and service to fellow man. He celebrated differences. He embraced humanity, championed what was true and just, and saw people for who they were.
McCain's body exited the church with a song that perfectly described how he proudly sacrificed for his country.
Much more than this, I did my way.
Then it was off to catch one final flight for McCain as his body was flown to Maryland. His funeral will be held this Saturday at the Washington National Cathedral, and he'll be laid to rest on Sunday. Those offering final eulogies include former Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama. Sonia Artero, TVB News.
And that's the news.
Thanks for joining.